What I want to talk about is why I won't be investing in Bitcoin. Now, I should say I am not an investor. I am not trained to give investment advice. I don't want to give investment advice. And most of all, I am not insured to give anyone investment advice. I don't want to do it. But the reason I'm talking about it is that I've been going on about what people can do if the system breaks down, which I think it is going to do, primarily or initially the financial system, followed a few years later by the political system. And people who think that, as I do, tend to think that Bitcoin will replace money or will become money. Now, I don't think that, but first of all, I should say that if the system stays up and governments stay powerful, governments can stamp on Bitcoin at a stroke. They can simply say any bank, any business that does a transaction in Bitcoin, they get sued, they go to jail. The directors go to jail, so don't do it. And that would crush the value of Bitcoin because you wouldn't be able to use it in transactions. So, and that could happen. Bitcoin is not anonymous, it's very traceable. Do a search for blockchain analysis. These are businesses whose job it is to find out what transactions have occurred where. You might have heard recently about Nick Fuentes at the Capitol demos, the Capitol riots in the States, and how some French holder of Bitcoin transferred, I think, $250,000 or $250,000 worth of Bitcoin to Nick Fuentes a few days before he died, before the French guy died. And that was found out very quickly. It's public knowledge now. It is not hard. It is not anonymous. Governments can stamp on it. But I'm going to assume the good case for Bitcoin, and that is that government goes down, the system goes down, and that means the dollar or the euro or the pound note, they go down, and some other form of money has to come into play. I still don't think it will be Bitcoin. And I certainly disagree with what people are saying, which is that Bitcoin is nationalist money. It's good for nationalist people. It creates community. No. I think that's eyewash. I'll deal with that in another video. I wouldn't mind debating that with someone actually, but I don't think that's going to happen. First, I want to talk about the good things with Bitcoin. The technology is good. The technology is sound. It's inventive. That technology has value. Bitcoin also is really unforgeable. You need more computing power than exists in the whole world in order to forge a Bitcoin transaction. You can't do it. There is robust accounting. It's very difficult to make a mistake because the ledger is shared, it's distributed. So if one makes a mistake, the others will put it right. There's a limited supply. It's reasonably liquid. It's not ideally liquid. It takes a while. It costs some money, but it is reasonably liquid. And crucially, there's no bank involved. So there isn't a counterparty risk. You don't have to worry about your bank falling over. And finally, it's borderless. I can pay someone in Russia in Bitcoin if I want, or a Russian blackmailer can take over my computer and demand that I pay them in Bitcoin. But it still is not money. And that is crucial for people who think, or for me, who might be thinking of investing in it. There are two reasons to invest in Bitcoin. The first is you think it's going to go up in price, invest in it, make money, sell, double your money fast. That's the first reason. The second reason is that you think it's going to replace money, and then you will have money. You'll be able to use it as money, as a way of facilitating transactions. That has value. So that the story is it will go up and up and up, then it'll hit $1 million per Bitcoin, and it will flatten out as it becomes money and everyone uses it as money. Now, I don't think it's going to become money. And if I explain a little bit about money, nothing is inherently money. Everything is a commodity, and some things have the attributes of money more than others. In pre-feudal society, goats and cattle, they were used as money. They're not very freely exchangeable, not a very good form of money. And then wheat became a better form of money, bushels of wheat. It's easier to store, it's easier to transfer. And then copper, or I think iron, or bronze became forms of money, and then precious metals like silver and gold, and cash, fiat currency, becomes money. Some things have attributes of money more than others. And to give you an example of that, you can pay me in beer. You can pay me for my car. I can insist that you buy my car in farty putty. Okay, I'll sell you my car for £1,000, but you've got to pay me with £1,000 worth of farty putty. So you go out, you buy a lorry load of farty putty, you get that delivered to me, and then I sell the farty putty back to the manufacturer, and I get whatever, I don't know, whatever they'll pay me for that lorry load of farty putty. Okay, that doesn't mean that farty putty is money. It just means it's something you've used for that one transaction. For something to be money, it needs to be easily exchangeable or liquid. It needs to be divisible. It needs to be interchangeable. So $1 is worth the same as another. One coin is the same as another, i.e. the technical term for that is fungible. It needs to be stable. The price needs to be stable, i.e. the technical term for that is it needs to be a store of value. It needs to be limited in supply, and it needs to be durable, so it can't just decay. Now, Bitcoin has most of those qualities, but it lacks one at all, one that it doesn't have at all, and that is stability. That lack of stability means it can never be money. And that means Bitcoin then fits the definition of a bubble asset. And that is an asset whose only value, whose only reason to purchase it is the belief that it will go up in value. And my advice is don't participate, don't join in with bubbles. It's nasty, it's not nice. You're asking to lose your shirt. No one's going to have sympathy. Don't do it. Now, let me look at stability. Stability is a necessary attribute of money, and it's easy to see why. If I say I'm going to sell you my car for £1,000, suppose I advertise it for 1,100 quid, and you come along and you haggle with me for an hour. I can't afford 1,100 quid. I can only pay you £1,000. Take £1,000, and eventually I say, okay, I'll take 1,000 quid. But actually, I still need the car for another week. So, or instead of 1,000 quid, I want it in Bitcoin, 1/30th of a Bitcoin. And you agree to that because that's 1,000 quid at today's price. And then I say, oh, by the way, I don't want to do this transaction for a week. I'll sell you this car in a week's time. And you've got to come back and give me 1/30th of a Bitcoin in a week's time. Are you willing to do that? That Bitcoin might have gone up by 50% in a week's time. In which case, instead of that Bitcoin is now worth 1,500 quid, and you have had to haggle me down. You spent an hour haggling me down 100 quid. It's gone up 500 quid. Are you willing to do that? You probably won't do that. You'll say to me, no, I want to buy that car from you today. I'll give you that 1/30th of a Bitcoin now. I'm taking the car away today, or there's no deal. You won't do that deal. Or what about if I've got a flat and I say I'll let it to you for £1,000 a month? But instead of £1,000, I want 1/30th of a Bitcoin every month on the nail. Bitcoin might go up 10 times in that year. Are you willing to take on that risk? That I could say, no, I'm going to hold you to that contract. I'm going to sue you. Doesn't matter that it's now 10 grand a month. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to bankrupt you. Will you take that on? Or what about your broadband agreement, your mobile agreement, an 18-month contract, 50 quid a month? Are you willing to risk that becoming 500 quid or 750 quid a month? That alone, on its own, just that mobile contract, could bankrupt you if you price it in Bitcoin. And there are loads of other things where it's just impossible because the guy on the other side, the institution on the other side, needs really fine, solid stability of pricing. A 30-year mortgage, a farmer entering into an option to sell his crops before the harvest because he doesn't know what the harvest is going to be like. Or a local authority who is employing someone just for the pension, they're just there for the pension. And what if that worker says, I want that pension to be priced in Bitcoin? Is that local authority going to take it on for, say, in 30 years' time when that employee retires? Money has to be stable. Now, if you look at the chart of Bitcoin, it is anything but stable. I think when it started out, it was 100 or 1,000 Bitcoins per cent. I think it was either something like 10,000 or 100,000 Bitcoins per cent. And then a few techies got into it and it was worth maybe 1/10 of a cent a go. And then the dark web got into it and it became worth a little bit of money, maybe, I don't know, 1 cent per Bitcoin. And then the speculators got in and it went up in value. So that by the end of 2017, less than a decade later, I think it was worth $19,000, and then it went down. It fell quickly back down to to about $3,000, and then it went up to $40,000 a couple of weeks ago. Now I think it's back down to about $30,000. I think before it went to $19,000, it went up to $1,000 and then down to $200. So very, very volatile. It is Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin is about as stable as your Viagra loaded bipolar leg humping dog. It is not stable. Let's talk about something that is stable, and that's gold. The myth that goes around, I don't know if it's true, is that some Greek philosopher swanning around among the columns, he'd pay a gold coin for his fancy toga. And then that was 4,000 years ago. 2,000 years later, some Roman backstabbing senator would pay one gold coin for his fancy toga. And then Oscar Wilde, in the Edwardian era, swanning around London, chatting up all the rent boys, he would pay a gold coin for a nice fancy suit. And today, if you want a nice tailored suit, you'll pay about the equivalent of a gold coin for a nice tailored suit. I've never dug up a Greek philosopher or a dead Roman senator and asked him what he paid for his toga, so who knows. But I can be more specific than that. Look at the price of hansom carriage rides. Hansom carriages in the 19th century, they were the taxis of the day. They wanted their prices regulated so that people, you and I, ordinary people, could jump in and out of a hansom carriage. They wouldn't haggle about price. They wouldn't hesitate. They knew what they were going to have to pay. So the price of a hansom carriage ride was fixed, I think, around the 1790s at 8 old pennies, or 2/3 of a silver shilling. And it remained, 2/3 of a silver shilling per mile that you travel. And that remained the same price until the 1850s, I think about 1856. And then some committee of politicians, some committee of inquiry looked into it and said, we're going to make it 6 old pennies, or half a silver shilling per mile. And that continued up until the end of the hansom carriage era, about when the car took over, about the time of World War I. So for a period of about 120 years, you had that very commonly used consumer good, that's a mile journey in a hansom carriage, that remained really stable, just one little leg down from 8 pennies to 6 pennies in the middle at the 60-year point. That is extreme price stability. Now that price stability under precious metals, that price stability happens for a reason. Gold is very, very stable. The reason it's stable is that the supply of it grows with mining, and that mining tends to grow with improvements in technology. So currently the supply of gold increases by about 2% per year. That means that the supply of gold tends to match moderate economic growth, which means that things priced in gold are stable. It keeps price with that economic growth, and that stability then enables business people to make it even more stable. So it goes from stable to ultra stable, and the way that happens is through bills of exchange, credit notes. So a businessman knows that gold coin is going to be worth the same today, tomorrow, a year, 5 years time. So they can then enter into IOUs, basically bills of exchange, saying I will pay you a gold coin on demand, in a year's time, or on demand. And this is how, up until the era of refrigeration, say in the medieval era, this is how prices remain stable. If you imagine medieval market, I've got a ton of wheat, I'm going to say all the traders turn up at the market. They don't want to carry gold with them in case they get mugged or hijacked and the gold's taken off them. So they would turn up, and let's say I buy a ton of wheat from you for a gold coin, and instead of giving you the gold coin, I give you an IOU. And then you use the IOU I've given you, saying I owe you a gold coin, and you sign it and you give it to someone else, and you get a ton of potatoes from him. And so he can now sue you on that IOU, and he can sue me on it as well. So it becomes even more reliable. He then goes and buys a dozen pigs off a pig farmer, and the pig farmer then comes to me and he gives me the same credit note, and he buys a load of bread off me that I've made with the wheat, and he gives me that same credit note, which shows that I owe myself a gold coin, so I tear it up. And that's what that meant was Gold didn't have to increase in supply with the supply of goods. Credit notes or bills of exchange, IOUs, they increased in supply and contracted in supply with the increase and contraction in the supply of goods. And so in the medieval era, when you had a massive economic boom once a year, it was called harvest, and you had a massive economic bust every year, that was a slump, and that was called the end of winter when everything had been used up. The only thing that had changed was the number of bills of exchange or IOUs in place, because they gradually got cashed in over the winter. So the gold price remained extremely stable. So it went, and because of those bills of exchange, the gold price, a stable asset, became even more stable. And because people knew it was still going to be the same price in a year or two's time. That is a long and proven history of financial stability. Bitcoin does not have a proven history of financial stability because it doesn't have a history. It's 12 years old, not thousands of years old. It doesn't have thousands of years of use. And its price is anything but stable. Even when it becomes stable, it is said that by 2040, 100% of all the Bitcoins will have been mined. Even then, it won't be stable. It will be deflationary because it is not actually that durable. People lose their Bitcoins. They forget their password. Their hard drive goes in a house fire. They throw out the wrong computer. The computer hard drive gets corrupted. It burns down, fire or flood. They just lose it, or they forget where they hid it. And that means, and you can Google for people who've lost hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. It is quite easily lost. That means the supply decreases. So as you have economic growth and the supply decreasing, that means Bitcoin is deflationary. It increases in value as against goods. Unlike gold, which is in fact much more stable than cash. During the 60s and 70s oil boom, I think the price of oil measured in dollars went up, I think 26 times. The price of oil measured in gold went up by about, I think, 34%. So much more stable. Bitcoin doesn't have that. If it becomes, as people say it will, stable in 2040, it will in fact become deflationary. That means that people will then hang on to it more because they will see that over time it increases in value. That will make it even more deflationary. And that instability is a problem. And you can see the effects of that instability. If you say to your smart aleck mate, bragging about how much money he's made on Bitcoin, and you say, "Here, clever Dick, how much Bitcoin have you got now? How much have you got?" He won't say, "I own 0.17983 Bitcoins." It doesn't sound very impressive, that. He'll say, "Well, at last night's price, close of business last night, it was $5,500. Aren't I clever?" He won't price Bitcoin in Bitcoin. He will price dollars. He will price Bitcoin in dollars. You ask him how many dollars he's got, he'll say, "I've got this many dollars." He'll price dollars in dollars. He won't price Bitcoin in Bitcoin. So, and that means you won't get these other mechanisms that build on the back of existing stability to make a stable asset even more stable. That won't happen with Bitcoin. People will act on it to make it even more unstable. So Bitcoin is not going to replace money, even if, as I believe, the system breaks down, which is what a lot of Bitcoin investors or hodlers are banking on. That the system will break down, money goes, Bitcoin replaces money. When you get a system breakdown, the prevailing emotion is fear. People get scared, and the thing they get scared about is money. How will I pay my bills? Will I get shafted? Will criminals take my money off me? And that financial panic means that people are not going to go, "You can talk till you're blue in the face explaining why Bitcoin is technically a great idea." People are not going to listen to that. People are going to rush to the thing that has centuries of proven stability to it. And that is not going to be Bitcoin. That means, I think that means it's not going to be Bitcoin. And that means, I'll say it again, the only reason to invest in Bitcoin is that you think the price will go up. So buy it off someone dumber than you who doesn't realize it's going to go up, hodl, and then sell it when it has gone up. That means it is a bubble commodity. And when it starts going down, that means there is no reason at all to hold on to it. You can't do anything with Bitcoin. You can't pave a road with it. You can't wear it around your neck. You can't decorate your house with it. It has no other use apart from the fact that you're going to be able to trade it in to someone dumber than you for more than you paid for it. So if it goes down and everyone says, no, this is going down, and you think it is going to go down in price, it becomes flatulence in a jar. You will just want to get rid of it fast. It has no other use if you think it's going to go down in value. And that will happen, and then it will, as it's taking the roller coaster up, it will then take the mine shaft down. And that is a good reason not to participate in bubbles. I think that people smarter than me are going to make plenty of money out of Bitcoin. They've done it already, certainly, and I think they will continue to do it for a while. If you were to ask me, where do I think Bitcoin will be? Well, I'd look at the curve and I'd say, well, that curve, it feels to me like it'll top out around the $200,000 mark. It might go to twice that. I don't know, it might go to half that, to $100,000 or $150,000. But that's not analysis, that's just me saying, that's what the shape of the curve feels like. So I think there are plenty of people smarter than me who will make money. I don't think I'll make one of them, that I'll be one of them. The reason is not because I'm too ethical, I'm too good for it, it's because I'm too dumb to do it. I don't think I'm smart enough to get in and to take money off somebody who doesn't realise it's going to go up, and then to sell and to take money off somebody who doesn't realise it's going to go down. And I think also, whilst I don't play the ethics card here, I think it is unethical to participate in bubbles to the extent that you are asking to lose money and then to be told that you deserved to lose. Because if you're investing in a pure bubble asset, you are playing a game of beggar your neighbour. You are simply betting that you can funnel money out of someone else's pockets into yours, and that you can do it because you are smarter than them. You are smart enough to do it. And there is a conceit, there is hubris in that. And that means you are asking to lose money, and you're asking to be told that you deserve money. In the same way that if you made your living as a gambler, playing poker against your neighbours, you produce nothing, but you gamble against other people. Suppose you do that and then you lose everything. Who is going to have sympathy for you? That is different from investing in a farm, a factory, a software company, or a mine, where something is created, someone gets wealthier. And that is how fraudsters shaft people. That is how they get people, because they can they offer something for nothing. There's money waiting in an account for you. Send me some money and I'll release it. And you think, oh, I can get this money. I'm not providing any value, but I can get this free money. It's good. And then they've got you. That is how you become easy to shaft. If you think that you are clever enough to make a mark out of other people, that probably means, the likelihood is that you are the mark. And that means don't participate in bubbles. That's why I'm not going to risk it. Now, I don't think I'm smart enough to outwit everyone all of the time. Now that means I will look pretty stupid for the next few years, I reckon, and I'll be feeling like I'm getting left behind, and I expect plenty of people to tell me that, but I will live with that. So that's not me telling you what you should do with your money. That's me saying why I am not going to be investing in Bitcoin. Sometime soon I'd like to talk about why it is not Bitcoin, cryptocurrency is not nationalist money. I don't think it's going to be. It is not something that builds communities, but I'll do that another time. So thank you for listening. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.